Hey there, my web crafting wizards. Today we're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna be doing a project episode. We're gonna be building a portfolio type website with some fun CMS features. So if you have dynamic content, and I wanted to sprinkle in some nice animations on top of it. So as you can see, we have this nice animated carousel that kind of has a progress bar as well. And these titles also pop up based on where you're scrolling. So let's have some fun. Let's get going. Does duplicate Ed bother you? Let me close him up real quick. There we go. I also have a little candle here because it's getting Halloweeny in here, so I thought I'd bump up the atmosphere. And I have Capri Sun because Starbucks is way too expensive. Don't buy that. Alrighty, let's get cracking. So for this project, I'm going to be using Next.js. Now feel free to use any front-end framework that you prefer. And for the CMS features, we are going to be using Wix Studio's headless CMS. So they have a nice free tier that you can use and experiment with and try it out. And from there on, if you want to add extra features or payment methods to it and stuff like that, check out their plans. So let's get going. So I'm just going to be copying this. We're going to be working in VS Code. So I'm just opening up the terminal here. You can do that with Control tilde, and I'll just make a new folder. So let's run npx create next app at latest. This is going to initialize a new project for us, and it's going to ask you to pick a name as well for it. So let's do yes here. So let's do CMS portfolio here like that. I'm going to hit yes here for everything like TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind, all of this jazz. Just hit enable. Okay, so we'll let this install in the background. Whilst that's going on, let's head back here. I'm gonna go over to Wix Studio. You can create a new template here, a blank canvas. It doesn't matter really. You're not making the website here. We're just gonna use the data from here. So I have one made here, so I'll just select the website and I'll show you how you can set up all your collections. All right, so there it is. Let's go here to edit website. And before we even check out all the CMS stuff, there's one thing that we need to get from here, from the settings, which is your authentication key, right? When you're fetching this data, it needs to authorize you somehow. And the way you can do that is head over here to the settings tab at the bottom. And here in the headless settings, you can click here. And then here you have your API keys. Now I have two. I'll delete this, don't steal it. I'll just make a new one, right? So we can create a new client here, give it any name you want. It's the CMS baby. All right, let's create this. That'll take a second or two. It might ask you to confirm your email address, but here we go. We have the client ID. So I'm just gonna take this, copy it over. That's all we need. Make sure to hit save there at the top because I spent 2 hours and it wasn't working. I didn't hit save. Yeah. Okay. This is still installing, so that's taking a bit of time, but make sure you copy this over so we have it available as we go. Now, as for the CMS settings, to enable that, all you need to do is go here to the side panel here, go to my business. I believe it actually might be the other one here. Yeah, CMS here, and just click enable on that. And as soon as you click enable, it's going to display you all of these different collections. Now, this might be empty for you. You can hit create collection and just give it a name. And that's pretty much it. And then to manage it, you can just click here and it'll take you right back to that settings panel. So there we go. So you can just add a bunch of items in here or create new columns if you want, fields, I mean, if you want. So if you want to add a text, if you want to add a Boolean, just kind of whatever content you want to provide, right? So I added a couple here. I did the title, I did the date, subtitle, tagline, and some images. All right, so that's basically it. And here, the gallery, you can upload multiple images if you want. For that, you need to select the media gallery instead of just the image. All right, that's gonna enable you to upload multiple images. And that's pretty much it. So I just picked a title here. This is all from Pexels. This is a really great website if you want to get some free images then you're not gonna have any copyright issues with, because these days it's quite hard to find good stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to do, and then you can get off here and then we can just work with our own custom code. So are you done yet? We are done. Lovely. So let's head into this. So cd, that's how you can go to a directory. So I'm gonna say CMS portfolio like that, and boom, we are in. If you're using VS Code, do code.r, enter, boom, magically teleports you straight into the actual folder. Now what does that command do? If you do code, that just means, hey, use VS Code. And then you do R, which means just reopen it in the current directory. And the dot means this. Okay? Does it make any sense? No? That's fine. Don't worry about it. We're here. Okay, cool. So if we run npm run dev, that should start up the dev server on localhost 3000, open it up, and we should be seeing the Next.js screen. Fantastic. Remember that little authorization code that we had? Okay, well, we need to add it. So the way we can add it is using a .env.local file, and here we can give it any name we want. Let's just do client ID. All right, paste that in there and hit save. You might need to restart this with Control-C and then reopen it. I don't think you need to do it anymore. They're doing like this hot reloading, but just for safety measures, let's do it. Hey, all right, go. All right, so what's the first thing we need to do? We need to set up that Wix client so we can actually start fetching that data. So the way you can do that is make a new, let's make a new lib folder. Before we do that, let's also add another package here that we're going to be using for styling, and that's shadcn. So let's head over to shadcn UI. It gives you really nice components straight out of the box. I really like it. I use it pretty much for most of my projects. I'm going to head over here to Next.js, copy this init command. Let's open up VS Code again, open up the terminal and paste that in. Hit yes there, and that should be good to go. Yes, 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 just enter, enter, enter. One more thing as well is we need to, what is wrong here? Oh, sorry, if you had any issues with running npx create next app, it's because they released a version 15, so I'll just initialize a bit lower version of this. So you can run npm create next app at, I'm gonna do 14.2.4, all right? This one is still in beta, so it just came out like I think a day or two ago, so it looks like it doesn't even properly work yet. So don't worry about it. Okay, let's do this CMS again, we're gonna call it. Okay, enter, 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 enter. I'm gonna rerun all the commands that we just did. All right, so I just downgraded the version, so let's see if this works now. I'll try to run that shadcn command again. Let's run this and watch it not error out anymore now. I promise, I guarantee you. Installing dependencies. As long as we get the lib folder here now popping up, because usually when you do shadcn install, you're gonna get a lib folder that gets set up because they give you a little utility function that merges CSS classes for you. So let's just see if this actually works now. And would you look at that? Everything installed properly now, and we have the lib folder here as well, ready to go. So let's run those commands again. npm I, I'm gonna say Wix data and add Wix SDK. Let's run that, and let's initialize our Wix client. So I'm gonna say Wix client.ts. Here we go. So I'm gonna say export const Wix client, like that. And we're gonna say create client, and as you can see, it's coming in from the SDK now, which is fantastic. And then here for the modules, so here, depending what you want, like if you want to, because Wix offers quite a couple of CMS, like, sorry, not CMS, but headless features, like e-commerce, booking, scheduling, right, and stuff like that. But one of them is CMS as well. So we'll just import the CMS features, and the way you can get that is from the Wix data. You just import the items, okay, like that. So this modules is basically going to register that, so you can just pass it there. And the last step is to add the client as well. So we're going to say auth, and the auth strategy, that's what we're going to be using. And here we're going to say client ID, and to actually access that, you can use the process env in node and client ID, right? That's all we need. And hit save. You are good to go. Cool. All right, so now we can actually start building our application. Let's head over here to our page TSX, our homepage, and we're gonna clean everything up here. There we go. I'm gonna leave the main tag. Usually want to leave that. There we go. Nice and clean. Ready to rock and roll. All right. So how can we fetch that data? Well, let's go here before the return statement. We're gonna say const data. I'm gonna say await. And before here, I'm gonna need to also say async. We're gonna say Wix client. I'm just gonna get those items. So the way you can do that is like this: Wix client. Something's not okay because it's not registering here. Let's have a look in our lib here quickly. Oh, here's the problem. Make sure this is an object here, not an array. So wrap it like that up. And now, hopefully items, yeah, there we go. It pops up now. So you can just do that, right? Items. And the way you can fetch it is you can do query data items. Okay, so what do we want to get? Well, we need to pass in a collection ID. So that's kind of whatever you named it here. I named my catalog. So I'm just gonna say catalog. Cool, there we go. Is there anything else I need to pass into this? Just have a quick look to see I'm not missing anything. You could pass down consistent read if you want. This is gonna make sure that all the data is like the latest, right? Because there might be, you know, some caching going on or stuff like that. I'm not sure how Wix exactly handles it, but you might not have the latest data. This is gonna make sure it does. In our case, it doesn't really matter. If we update this, you know, once every now and then, that'll be fine. But that's pretty much it. And finally here at the bottom, we're also gonna need to add this find. All right, it's just gonna return everything for us. All right, so let's go down here, and what I'm gonna do is just loop over this. So here, I'm gonna have access to the catalog and the index. I'm just gonna return an actual section here. That's looking nice. There we go. I'll add a bit of class to this. Just want to make sure I add a height to this. Min height SVH. That's just gonna take all the like full screen height of it. And I also need to pass a key down here. So I'll just say catalog ID. Catalog. Okay, why is this not mapping correctly? Oh, data.items. My apologies. There we go. Catalog ID. We can just pass that down like that. All right, let's here. I'll just make a new component here so we can kind of separate these into client components. Why? The homepage here is a server component, meaning that we cannot add interactivity. I cannot do an on-click listener on this, or like add a state here that I can monitor, or if I want to do animations like framer motion. Oh, speaking of it, let's install it. npm i framer motion. This needs to be a client component, so we're just going to create a separate one for this. You can add a components folder here, like this, components, and I'll name this, let's name it gallery head. Cool, there we go. All right, so how is this gallery head gonna look? I'm gonna do a use client at the top. That's gonna say, hey, this is a client component. And let's see, export default function. Name it gallery head. I wanna add two little props down here. We'll do a title and a subtitle. And then I can specify the types here as well. So this is a string, both of them are gonna be strings, right? So there we go, just we can get some little nice type safety. That's always good. Okay, do a div here. And what I wanna do here to track basically when these are coming into view is I'm gonna create a reference here. So I'm gonna say use ref, we're gonna import this from React. I'm gonna pass null as the default. And then here, you can just pass down that ref by saying ref. Not to be confused with doc sound. And then is in view here. This is a little helper function that you can get from Framer Motion. Now that we installed it, you should be able to import it like that. Use in view. And then it just needs that reference. And that's it. That's pretty much all you need. Okay, so how can we do this? We can say, let's do H2 in here. And actually, so what do we want to render? The title, right? And then down here, let's do H3 as well. I want to render the subtitle. Okay, how can we animate this? I'll copy this over just so it's a bit easier for you to see. We're gonna do a style on the H2 here, like that. And what I'm saying here is I want to change the transform. So how it's gonna move, right? From left and right or up to down. I'm gonna say if it's in view, then it's none. Otherwise, we're just using like a ternary operator here. Otherwise, move it by 50 pixels to the left. And then I'll do the same with opacity, and then I'll just add like a custom Bezier curve to this. And what I also want to do is just make this text a bit bigger. So I can add a little class name here as well, separately from this. That's just going to be responsible for the animation. So I'm going to say like text 6XL. There we go. Let's do a font of semi-bold, padding bottom of 1, something like that, right? I'll show you how this is going to look just in a second as well. So let's do the same for the H3 as well. So I pretty much did the same. The only difference is I just added a little delay here on the transition, and I just did opacity. I pretty much took out the transform. I thought this looks a bit better. And that's pretty much it. And then I also made this text just a tad bit bigger, and with a text muted of foreground. This all comes from ShadCN, so all the variables for the colors are set up for you. So you have your text primary, your text muted, and your text secondary. That's it. Okay, cool. So this is all set up so we can import it here and actually see it in action. So let's do gallery heads. There we go. And remember, this needs 2 props. See, now that we have the types, we can just easily add that. So that's coming from catalog.data. What did we name it? Let's have a look here. Title and subtitle, right? Title. I'll just copy this over like that. Change this to subtitle. Subtitle. Save. npm run dev. Let's see if this works. Hello, we're here. Enter, refresh this. Pray. And look at that, there we go. We have our text popping up, we have the subtitle, and then when we scroll, as you can see, as soon as it comes into view, it starts animating in. How cool is that? Now we can modify, you know, if you want to add a bit more delay to this, you can. You just go over here at the end. Let's see, transition. All right, we have the cubic Bezier. Let's do 0.25 seconds on the H2 and 0.5 seconds on the subtitle. There we go. That's a bit better. Lovely. All right. So now we want that gallery, right, that we can drag through and also has that nice little animation. So let's make a new component now. I'm gonna make a new file. Let's call this scrolling gallery.tsx. Okay, we're gonna initialize a use client at the top, export default function. Let's call this scrolling gallery. What does this need? What does this need? I'm gonna have images here, and let's say I'm gonna pass images. This is gonna be an object. I just want the source here, which is gonna be a string, maybe an alt as well. String, let's pass that down. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. We'll see as we go. Let's return something here as well. So I'm gonna set up a bit of markup here. We're gonna do a div. There we go. Ooh, my nose is really itchy. And here basically what I want to do is have like a gray background bar that's always visible. And on top of that gray background, the actual black text is gonna pop on top of it. So for that, I'm gonna import motion here. So if you do motion like that, let's see if that gets imported. There we go, from Framer motion. And we go, so make sure you get that. And this is how that's gonna look like. Let me paste it here. Okay, so it's just gonna be a motion div, which is gonna give you just extra features here. I'm gonna put a position absolute, bottom of 0, left of 0, with a height of 2, and a width of full. All right, and the background of muted on top of it as well. Okay, now for the actual carousel, we need to also do the progress bar that overlays this gray one, right? So I'll just paste that here so you can see it. And the way that's gonna look like is, let me just put it here. It's pretty much gonna be the same. However, actually this BG muted is still quite intense. So I'm just gonna go here and say BG gray 200 on this top one. All right, so this is the one that's gonna overlay on top of this one. All right, and then finally we just need that carousel. So let's also define a carousel here, and that's gonna be a motion div again. So let's define that. And I wanna also add a ref to this. So let's do a ref of ref. We'll need to import this again. So let's just go here before the return statement. There's actually a couple of things that we need. So we'll do container ref. So use ref. And this is gonna be actually a better way to just, rather than just pass null here, is you can add a generic and just explicitly say, hey, this is a HTML element, like that. It's even more specifically a div element, like that. Okay, and then we're gonna say null here. All right, so we got the container ref, and now we need a way also to get the width and calculate basically how much we're dragging, right? And because we need to update basically the progress of our carousel. So the way you can do that is we're gonna just do a state here. We're gonna say container width, and then the method for it. And I'm gonna just say use state, and by default I'm gonna put this to 0. We'll need to import this as well, so let's do that. And then also the content is gonna have its own width. So I'm gonna create another state for that as well. And then what we can do is use this motion value from Framer Motion. This is gonna allow us animate any value in a very performant way. And then here's the cool little trick. Well, I'll show you this after actually. Yeah, then we're pretty much good to go. So let's go down here. I believe I named this container ref, so not ref here. Let's do container ref instead. There we go. And since this is a motion div now, we can add special properties on it like drag. So if I do drag, I'm gonna say, hey, I wanna drag this only on the x-axis, right? I don't wanna drag this on the y-axis as well. And the drag constraint is gonna be limited to the ref. So you cannot drag more than the actual, width of it. And then we can also add a drag elastic. This is gonna give us that, on Apple, when you refresh or in Safari, when you drag all the way to the top of the page, you have that nice little bounce, that smooth little bounce. This is how you can do it. So I'll add 0.1, which is gonna be quite subtle. And then for the style here, I'm just gonna pass down the X value from the motion value. Now we're not using this in any way yet, but let's just define it now. Okay, and that's pretty much it. And then in here, all we need to do is just essentially map over this. So if I do images, the map over each image, we'll also have the index here. It looks like I did something wrong because we cannot map over this. It detects it as just an object. So we'll fix that, but let's just go through it. Let's loop over this. And here I'm gonna return, let's do a an image component. So let's add that like that. And then this is gonna take a source. So the source is gonna be image. And I'll just pass an alt down as well. This is gonna be image. Actually, yeah, we need the autocomplete here. This is not gonna work. So let's have a look what's going on here. Oh, see here at the top, it's just singular. So if you add the brackets there like that, then it means that, hey, this is actually an array. So that should work now. So let's see image. So now I should be able to do dot source, yes, and dot alt tag as well. Fantastic. Let's do width here as well. Do 960 with a height of 460 like that. I'll also do a class name and I say with a full. Okay, cool. So we got that defined. Everything's looking nice and dandy. I think that's pretty much it for now. We'll need to set up all the animation stuff, but let's just try to get this working. So let's head back over here and import that component. So we're gonna say scrolling, what did I call this? Gallery. How is my memory so freaking bad? scrolling gallery. There we go. Lovely. So this is going to take, again, in the images. So for here, what we can do is just say catalog dot data dot gallery, like that. And if this is not present by any chance, I'll just pass in an empty array like that. Okay, let's hit save and let's have a look. If you get this error here, it just means that you need to set up the host name here for the images, because Next.js is going to stop you from doing that if it comes from an unknown source. So that's a super simple fix. You can just head over here to the next config, and you essentially need to add an images property here like that with the remote patterns. In Wix's case, it's static.wixstatic.com. Okay, once we add that, hopefully we should be able to just refresh and see the images. Let's pray. Oh, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. No errors so far. An error. You might need to restart this. Okay, we have another error. As you can see, invalid source prop here we're getting. It says Wix image, blah, blah, blah. All right, so we need to format this in a URL that we can actually use as a source, because this is not gonna work. But they give you a nice little utility function that you can use. So just head back over here and import the media from the Wix SDK. And this is gonna let you do just that. So here for the source, I'm just gonna take this out and say media.get image URL, pass in that image source, and then you can do just .url like that. There, and hit save. Let's have another look. Oh, that's a good sign. That's loading. That means the images are loading as well. They're just quite massive. You probably want to compress them a little bit. I just did full quality, and it's loading up a bunch as well. Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, so clearly I haven't formatted these nicely, so let's just add some styling to this. So check this out. I ended up using these settings here. I'm just gonna replace these. I'm gonna have a motion diff here on the outside of this map function. So I'll just copy that over. And I added a flex to this with a flex shrink like that. And then here I'm just passing in, let me just update this image dot source. And here I'll do image.alt. So everything stays the same. I just updated the height, the width, the flex shrink, max width of medium here. I reduced the size, and make sure you add pointer events of none, especially when you're doing drag stuff. By default, it'll just grab the image and it'll show you like a quick preview of it, which is something you don't want. So let's just update it to that. Okay, that's pretty much it. So if you want to get this exact settings, just copy this over. And there we go. Would you look at that? Oh, it's still not doing kind of what I wanted to do. It's not flexing. We want this to flex. Maybe it just needs a refresh. No, it's not flexing. Oh, here we go. We have a little dash there. That's why it wasn't working. There we go. That's what I want to see. So remove that dash there. Also add a gap of like 2 here to just kind of separate them a tad bit like that. You can add more if you want, like 4, if you want a bit more space. But look, when I drag now, would you look at that? It's actually doing something. That's fantastic. All right, and then you can see the line there as well. It's not behaving yet how we want it, but we are getting there. We're getting close. One more thing I want to do is kind of push these a bit off because they're kind of stuck there at the top, which looks a bit funny. And if we have a look, let's kind of see how big these sides are. So as you can see, it's just taking up like all the space right now, right? Obviously, it's going to put that at the bottom as well because we add the bottom 0 to it. But let's just add some padding to this. So where is this coming from? Well, we have the main tag here, right? We're looping over everything. And we are creating a section here, right, for all of this. So I'm going to go here, add a padding of like 24. And look at that. That just kind of squeezes everything a bit together like that, which is nice. Now there's one more thing we need to fix is, as you can see, we have this scroll bar here, which we don't really want. And that's coming from the scrolling gallery because this is overflowing a little bit too much. So we can just head here and add a class name to this and say overflow of auto like that. And there we go. See, that's gonna cut it nicely for us. But we actually don't want the scroll bar here because we're gonna make our own custom one, which is this line right here, right? So let's just head back, and rather than do an auto here, I'm just gonna do hidden instead. And if you do hidden, as you can see, that just kind of gets rid of it and cuts it. If this line is still stretching out the bar like that for you, it's because I believe we didn't add relative here. So let's add relative, and there we go. Now it's acting properly and matching the actual box size for us. So there we go. There's our line as well popping up. There we go. Now this is still being finicky, but we'll fix it in a second. Okay, so now what we want to do is essentially set the width dynamically for the container and the scroll bar. And I'll copy this over so you can see it. You'll need to set up a use effect here. So this use effect is going to take in a callback function that's just going to take a look at the container ref, and it's going to set the container width and the content width as well. Okay, so container width and content width. And when these images change or we add new images, this is automatically going to update for you and refresh. Okay, and now that we have that, let's do refresh now. That sets it dynamically now. As you can see, it still doesn't do anything because we're not using these values anywhere yet. As you can see, they're still left like that. So we're gonna need some kind of transform. We wanna basically have this X value be dynamically updated between a value of 0 and 1 based on the size of that container. So you can use a function called useTransform that a framework motion provides you. And I'll show you how it works. So I'm gonna call this progress, set equal to useTransform. Let's import this. So it's gonna be X, right? That's the one we wanna modify. I'm gonna add an array here, and it's gonna take an input range and an output range. So I'm gonna say minus the content width, like that, minus the container width. I'm gonna add a comma here, 0, like that. So that's gonna be the first one. And we can format this to be between a range of 1 and 0. So now basically what this means is when you're at the beginning of the container, it's gonna give you a progress of 0. When you're halfway scrolled, it's gonna automatically kind of dynamically compute this to 0.5, and then when you're at the end to 1, rather than some arbitrary pixel value, you know, like 300 pixels. You're like scroll 320 pixels. Okay, well, what does that mean? And that doesn't help me when I want to like animate something. All right, so that's essentially what this does. And then we can take this progress and just add it to our div here. So let's go here to the second progress bar that we have. And all I'm gonna do is say style equals, and I'm gonna say scale X, and I'm gonna set that over to the progress. And that's it. Let's hit save and give it a look. So I'm gonna make this a bit smaller, do a refresh. And as you look at that progress bar there, see? I have 2 duplicate divs here, so I don't think that was the right thing to do. So I'm just gonna copy this class name. Let's just purge this motion div here. 1 is enough there. And add a class name to this, because right now I think this is kind of breaking here and it's not really responding how we want to. So I'll add it up here instead. I'll do flex with shrink. We don't even need shrink. Let's just do flex with a gap of 4 like that. And then we need a cursor. Let's do cursor grab on this. And when it's active, we'll do a cursor of grabbing like that. All right, and hopefully I'll do an overflow of hidden here. But we did it on the top one. So I think that's why it might be breaking here. So let's get that overflow hidden from the top here. Let's see if that actually does anything. Let's do refresh. No, looks like it still gets stuck. So let's just try to diagnose what's going on here and why this is not working. You know what? Let's do how we had it before. I'll do another div here. I think that's it. We'll do another motion div within here. I'll cut this, let's wrap this up like that, and then go here, and I'll add the drag constraints here now. Let's try that, whoops. And let me just add the drag constraints here instead, like that, and then on this top one, we'll remove everything. So the drag constraints, drag elastic, the style, and the drag X. like that. Okay, so just keep this simple and we'll add it within here like that. All right, let's see if that works. Is the refresh? Oh, there we go. Look at that. So we just needed another div inside there. Cool. So now when we drag, look at that. We got this nice little animation. How cool is that? And you get the progress as well. Now this is like instant, as you can see. However, if you do want like some sort of easing and spring motion to this, they do provide you with a little function here called useSpring, which is super cool. So here's how that works. You can define a spring progress here. I'm gonna say use spring here, import that from frame or motion, and I'll paste this after the progress here. So I'll pass in the progress and just add a stiffness, a damping, and a mask to it like that. So instead of using just the progress here on the line, see on the scale X, I'll use the spring progress instead. And now check this out. When I scroll, as you can see, it has a nice little easing to it. So if I go really fast, see, kind of eases super nicely. I just prefer that. You know, it looks really nice and smooth. All right, there we go. How cool is that? Okay, so next up, let's just add a link here so it can go in like a description page, and then we have a nice animation there as well. So let's just head back to our page here. We can just add a normal like HTML here. Let me kind of show you what I did here. So just a div here with a flex on it. I just added a paragraph. I want to pull out the date. I also added the index here because we're looping over, so it's going to show up a nice big number there. And I'm going to have a link tag here from Next.js. So let's import that. And an arrow right, which is going to come from Lucid React. So let's install that quickly. Lucid React, like that. Okay, and now we can import this arrow right from Lucid React. And that's it. So this link is basically going to take us to the details page here in catalog ID. So if we run npm run dev again, it's not going to let us take us there, but let me just kind of show you how the styling looks on this. So let's do refresh. Gonna take a second. But there we go. So we got the date also popping up 0 and view more there. So 1, 2, and 3. All right. Super cool. Okay. So to get this going, where you could actually go inside the view more here, you can create a new folder here. So I'm going to details and I need to keep the format the same. So details folder, and this is dynamic here. So for dynamic data, you can do another folder. I'm just going to pass an ID like that. Okay. Here we go. And then in here, you can have a page.tsx. Okay, cool. So this is going to be super simple. I'll copy this over because it's really not that big of a deal. We're essentially doing the same things here. We're doing the Wix data like we did. You can extract the params here, which is the ID of the item. So rather than doing here query data items, instead I'm doing get data item. And you can just pass in the params ID like that. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I'm looping over, I'm pulling out all the images here. I'm using the media.getImageURL. And here I added an animated details just so I can separate it in a client component again, just so we can do some animations. So for that, I'll just co-locate the file here. That's fine. Let's call this animated details. Something like that. And again, I just added another like motion div within here and just did some custom animations. Go on, have fun, experiment yourself. I just did an animate to 1 opacity with the initial of 0 and a bit of delay and some duration on the images and on the text as well. And that's pretty much it. We can import this animated details within here, hit save. Let's give this a go. Let's head back here, do a refresh. Now when I click here, it should navigate us over to the actual page like that. And again, if you want to, again, this is kind of like, we might want to squeeze this in a bit, so we can do a class name of P24 as well to kind of push everything together. But there we go. Now you're on the details page as well. So you can go and view each post. And there we go. It's as simple as that. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you had fun. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you want to see more animation stuff like this. It's super, super fun. All right. Catch you in the next one. Peace.